Mesachis Kesubos Daf Kuf Ches begins with a Mishnah and contains two additional Mishnayos. They will be three separate subjects. It is the second statement of Hanan, and that was argued on by the Bnei Chanan Gedolim, and that will be the first two of the seven statements of Admon that the Chachamim did not agree to as well. And then we'll have a sugya on each of them. The second one will be brief. So let's begin the Gemara. Let's begin with the Mishnah at the bottom of Daf Kuf Zayin. The Mishnah says the following statement of Hanan. The case is somebody went to Medina Siyam and he left his wife behind. And as we said, his wife is owed money. She has to get support. And somebody else, a random guy, decided to feed this guy's wife. He went and he fed her. And then when he returned from Medina Siyam, he said, look, you owed your wife support. I paid it to her. Now I'd like you to pay me back. I was lending you the money when I went and I fed your wife. So Hanan says he doesn't owe him anything. Doesn't have to pay him anything. He never asked him to. He didn't ask him. He's the supporter is claiming I lent you the money because you owed it. And the husband could just say, I never asked to borrow from you. You gave it to her. I never promised to pay it back. Goodbye. However, the Chachamim did not agree. The Bnei Kahanim Gedolim argued, and they said, no, he has a right to collect it. He has to swear how much he actually gave, and then the husband has to pay it to him, because it's considered to be a benefit that he did. And the halacha is if you go and benefit someone without asking, you get paid for it. You get at least a restoration of how much you spent. Hanan disagrees because Hanan says he didn't benefit me anything. He took away a loss I could have had because I owed something. That's not called a benefit, and I don't need to pay for that. Now, the Mishnah quotes two other Tanaim that took sides. The Gemara says Rabbi Dosman Hyrcanus agreed with the Bnei Kahanim Gedolim that he has to pay. And Yochanan ben Zakkai agreed with Hanan, and it says, this guy hung his money on the horn of a deer. The deer ran away. He lost his money. It's his own problem. Now, the Gemara is going to introduce a totally different machlokas. The Gemara is going to have a kasha on that Gemara and answer it based on the two opinions in our Mishnah, Hanan and the Bnei Kahanim Gedolim. So the case over there is you have two people who have asred hana on each other. Reuven and Shimon, they each said they're not allowed to get hana from each other. And the question is, what are they allowed to do now that they have this isser hana? So the Gemara says, the Gemara quotes a Mishnah, that it's a Mishnah in Nedarim. The Mishnah says that, let's say it's Reuven and Shimon, so Reuven could give Shimon's machatzis a shekel. He's allowed to pay off a loan that Shimon owes, and he's allowed to return an object that Shimon lost. Now, if it's a place where you pay someone for returning a lost object to you, you pay him for his work, that money is not allowed to be paid because that's going to be a hana, violates the neder, so that money has to be given to hektish. So now, the Gemara says, I understand two out of these three cases. You understand why he's allowed to give machatzis a shekel. You don't really gain anything from somebody giving machatzis a shekel for you. It's money that you owe. You no longer owe it, but that's not considered to be a gain because you didn't gain anything monetarily. You would not have any less entitlement had you not given it. The halacha is that when machatzis a shekel is brought, when the coins are taken out of the box that the machatzis a shekel is in and karbonos are brought, they have in mind that this refers to the people who didn't pay yet, the people who sent the money but it never got here, it got lost, or it's on the way. All these people we have in mind for them, and even if their money never gets here, we have in mind for them as well. So therefore, everyone's represented by the Karbonos Tzibor that are paid for with this money, even someone who doesn't send. So the fact that the guy never sent, there's not going to be a problem. He's still included in the Karbonos Tzibor. So the fact that the person paid for him is not a hana. Now, so that's as far as the shekel. Now, as far as returning his lost object, it's a mitzvah to return someone's lost object. It's not considered to be a benefit for him that you returned his lost object. You are doing your mitzvah of returning his lost object. That's also not considered a hana. However, paying off his loan. Why should he be allowed to pay off his loan? That is a benefit for him. You're giving a monetary benefit. He no longer owes the money. And people aren't going to come claiming money from him any longer. So how do you explain that? So the Gemara quotes Rav Aishia and Rava, who explained it each according to different opinions. In our Mishnah, Rav Aishia said it's Hanan. Hanan holds the fact that somebody paid off your debt that you owed is not a benefit to you. As a matter of fact, Hanan went so far as to say you don't have to pay the guy back because it's not considered like you got anything from him. He took away a claim against you. You never actually got anything. You prevented a loss. You didn't gain anything. And that's not considered to be a benefit. And you're allowed to do that for someone who's Aser B'Hana. Rava said it could even be There are Rabbanan who say that it is a benefit. We're talking over here where the original loan was made, and they made an agreement where he said that the guy can never claim it back from him. There is no due date. I could always say, I'll pay you later, I'll pay you later. A situation like that, you're never going to end up having to pay it. Never going to end up having to pay it. It was never collectible, and the guy didn't gain you anything by paying it. So Mar says, why did each one not want to say like the other's opinion? So Rava, it's clear why he didn't want to say like Rav Oishia, because he wanted to go with the Rabbanan. He didn't want to go with just Chanan. Why did Rav Oishia not want to say like Rava? So Mar says he didn't like Rava's taina that it's not considered a benefit if you could always push the guy off and say you never want to pay it, because there is a benefit. The benefit is that you don't have to face the guy in the street knowing that you owe him the money and you're never planning to pay him. The guy's going to be embarrassed from him for all times, and therefore there is a benefit of some sort. That's what Rav held, and therefore he didn't like this pshat. All right, this concludes the discussion on this mission. Then we go to our next mission. This is the beginning of the halachos said by Admon. Admon said 7 halachos that the Chachamim disagreed with. So Admon's first halachos is in the first Mishnah. Says somebody who died and he left over sons and daughters. So what do you do with the money that was left behind? So if there's enough money for everybody, so the sons inherit it all and they have to pay support to the daughters. The daughters they don't inherit, but they have to be fully supported. Now what happens if there's not enough money left? What's defined as enough money? Enough money is enough for them all to eat off for 12 months. Let's say there's not enough, so what do you do then? So the Tanakh in the Mishnah says the daughters get the money for food, and the sons have to go collecting, because the sons can. Admon says the following expression. He says, why should I lose just because I'm a male? Whereas I explain what that means. And Rabbi Gamliel says, I agree with Admon. So now the Gemara says, okay, that's the Mishnah. What did Admon mean when he said, why should I lose because I'm a male? The Gemara understands that Admon was trying to say that a male should be better off than a female. Why should a male be better off than a female? And Adam was being sarcastic. He's saying I should lose because I'm a male. He was as if to say I should be even better because I'm a male. So what's better about the fact that he's a male? Why is that more of a reason you should get the money? So Gemara tries two options. The first option is because he learns Torah, so therefore he should have more of a right to the money than a woman who doesn't learn Torah. Gemara says that doesn't make sense. Learning Torah does not entitle you to any greater inheritance than anyone else. If you have two sons, one learns Torah, one does not learn Torah. So the one who learns gets more of an inheritance than the one who doesn't learn. Obviously that's not correct. So therefore that has nothing to do with it. So Gemara says no. What Admon meant was because he has the right to inherit, not just to get a food stipend, but to inherit if there is enough money. So you see he has a stronger inheritance power. Therefore, if there's not enough money, he certainly shouldn't be worse off than the girls who will get the money for support. So what does Admon hold? So the Rishonim say he holds that they all get supported equally. They all share equally in the money until it runs out, and then when it runs out, they all equally have to go collecting. All right, now we get to our next Mishnah, which is the next halacha of Admon. Completely unrelated. It's going to talk about the concept of moda b'mixas. Now, moda b'mixas means when somebody has a claim against him, Reuven comes and tells Shimon, you owe me money, and Shimon says, I owe you half of it. So the halacha is moda b'mixas has to swear shua d'oraisa that he only owes half. He pays the half that he says he owes, and he doesn't have to pay the half that he says he does not owe. The question is, what's called half? What if he only agrees to one thing and not to something else? Or what if he says you owe me one thing and he says I know I owe you something else, which is half the value? Is that called agreeing to half or not? So that's a lengthy sugya in Maseches Shavuos and in Maseches B'Metzia, B'Kama. So the Gemara is going to bring in a quote over there, and we're going to discuss if this Mishnah supports either of those two positions. So let's see, the Mishnah, the case over here is where somebody says you owe me barrels of oil. And the other guy says, I don't owe you oil, I owe you empty barrels. So Admon says this is called moda b'mixas. The guy claimed you owe me the oil and the barrels, and he agreed that he owes him the barrels. So he agreed to part of the claim. He has to therefore swear that he only owes him the barrels and not anything else. Chachamim say no, this is not called part of the claim. This is called completely denying the oil. And therefore, it's not moda b'mixas, and they do not have to swear. Says Rabbi Gamliel, again, I agree with Admon. So now the Gemara begins, and the Gemara wants to say that the Rabbanan are clearly saying that if Reuven claims to Shimon, you owe me wheat and barley, and Shimon says, I agree that I owe you the barley and not the wheat, that is not called moda b'mixas, because you don't agree to part of the taina. Part of the taina is if he says you owe me 100 grains of wheat, and he says, I only owe you 50. But here, if there's two different tainas, and he agrees to one of them and not the other one, that's not called part of the taina. That's called two different tainas, one which he agreed to, one which he did not. And he doesn't have to swear on the one which he did not agree. So Gemara says that is a machlokes, which we've seen in the Gemara in Baba Kama and Baba Metzia. And Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel that if Reuven claims to Shimon, you owe me wheat and barley, and he says, I only owe you one of the two, then he is chayav to swear. So here you have the Chachamim, who obviously we're going to paskin like, will clearly say, you don't have to swear. Again, if you have two different claims together, it's not, and you agree to one of them, it's not called half the claim. It's called one I agreed, one I did not agree, and both fully. So the Gemara says, again, we have a proof against Rav Nachman in the name of Shmuel. So says Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav, that's not what we're talking about over here. When the guy said, you owe me barrels of wine, when you owe me barrels of oil, he wasn't saying you owe me the barrels and you owe me the oil. He was saying you owe me just oil. Barrel was the measurement. He said you owe me 10 barrels of oil, not that you owe me the barrels. You could give me the oil without the barrels. Bring me the barrels, pour them into my storage well. But you owe me the oil, but that was just a measure. And therefore, he was only claiming the oil. He was not claiming the containers. And that's why when the guy admits the containers, he's not admitting to half of what he claimed. According to all opinions, he's not admitting to half of what he claimed. Even Rav Nachman would agree that that's not half of what he claimed, because he never claimed the containers themselves. So says the Gemara, this can't be correct, because then why would Admon say that he has to swear? He never admitted to anything that the other guy claimed. So that can't be the correct pshat. So says Rava, I'll tell you a different pshat on what happened over here. The argument is about what different types of language mean. So let's say we have three cases as to what he could have said. He could have said, you owe me 10 barrelfuls of oil. There he's clearly using it as a measure. He's only asking for the oil. And if he agrees to the barrels, that's clearly not moide b'mixas. However, if he says you owe me 10 barrels full of oil, there he's clearly claiming the oil and the barrel, and if he agrees to the barrels, it is moed b'mixas. What's a machlokes? Machlokes is what does it mean when he says you owe me 10 barrels of oil? There, is he asking for just the oil, or is he also asking for the barrels? That's the machlokes between Admon and the Rabbanan. Admon says that's asking for the barrels too, so if he agrees to the barrels, it's moed b'mixas. Rabbanan say that's not asking for the barrels, and therefore if he agrees to the barrels, it's not moed b'mixas. Says the Gemara, aha, so now you have a proof to Rav Nachman, because now you see both opinions are clearly saying that if he asks for two different things, if he would be asking for both things, the oil and the barrels, and he agrees to the barrels, that's considered moed b'mixas. That's a proof to Rav Nachman against the one who argues him, which is Rav Chia bar Abba, who says that if you ask for wheat and grain, if you ask for wheat and barley, and he only agrees to one of them, that's considered moed b'mixas. So you see clearly a proof. Rav Chia bar Abba says that's not the moed b'mixas, you don't have to swear. Rav Nachman says it is, and you do have to swear. You see clearly a proof to Rav Nachman against Rav Chia bar Abba that is considered to be asking for those two things, and he agreed to one of the two, and which is half the taina, and therefore he does have to swear. So the Gemara says, no, this is different. This is like if somebody says, you owe me a pomegranate with its peel. That's not two things, a pomegranate and a peel. That's one thing. A pomegranate comes with a peel. So oil in a barrel is also one thing. Oil comes with a barrel. So there, everybody agrees. Even if the Rabbi would agree that if he's moeded to just the peel of the pomegranate, or if he's moeded to just the barrel, that's considered part of the taina. That's one taina. However, wheat and the wheat and the barley, that's two different things. That's not moeded b'mixas at all. Now the Gemara asks, this is not like the peel of the rimon. The peel of the rimon, you can't have a rimon without a peel. It's not going to last, not going to survive. You need it to be with the peel on it. You could have oil without a barrel. Somebody could say you have a well. The way the olive presses used to work was that the oil would drain into a big hole in the ground that was lined so that it didn't lose the oil. So that was where it was stored. You had gallons and gallons that were stored there, and then you could just come with a barrel, take some out, and pour it into the other guy's well. So you don't need to have the barrels. So the barrels is a separate entity. You shouldn't view it as a barrel, as just the peel of the rimon. So okay, I'll give you a new explanation as to what the case here that has no effect on the machlokes between Rav Nachman and Rav Chia bar Abba. The machlokes over here is where the following thing happened. The guy came and said, Reuven, he came and said, you owe me 10 barrels of oil. And the Shimon answered, he said, I owe you no oil. I do owe you barrels, but I only owe you 5, not 10. So here, there's no issue. The machlokes is what did Reuven ask for? According to Admon, Reuven asked for barrels and he asked for oil. According to the Chachamim, Reuven only asked for oil. We assume that he was just using it as a measure. So according to Chachamim, he asked for oil. He never asked for barrels. The other guy admitted to barrels. He admitted to something he never asked for. That's not the mode of a mixas, and therefore doesn't have to swear. According to Admon, he asked for oils. He asked for oil and he asked for barrels. He asked for 10 barrels. He admitted to 5 barrels. Therefore, he admitted to part of the barrels. Forget the oil. He admitted to part of the barrels that the guy asked for. And that's why he has to swear, because of part of the barrels. This has absolutely nothing to do with Rav Nachman's case, nothing to do with Rav Rabba's case, because you never have a case where he admitted to every part of one of the 2 minim that he asked for. He admitted to part of one of the minim they asked for. That's a little bit mixed according to all opinions, if he was really asking for it. The Rabbanon, however, said he was never asking for that, and therefore it's not a mode of a mixas.